The clock on the nightstand glowed 11:47 p.m. when I first noticed the silence. Not the peaceful kind that comes with a sleeping house, but the heavy, suffocating silence that presses against your chest and makes every breath feel deliberate. She should have been home 2 hours ago. I picked up my phone for what must have been the 20th time, my thumb hovering over her contact photo, that picture from our anniversary dinner where she was laughing at something I'd said, her eyes crinkled at the corners, wine glass raised in a toast. The image seemed to mock me now, a snapshot from a simpler time when late nights were rare and always explained. The call went straight to voicemail. Again. Hey, it's me. I know you're probably just busy wrapping things up at the office, but call me when you get this, okay? I'm starting to worry. I tried to keep my voice steady, casual even, but the tremor at the end betrayed me. This wasn't like her. In 12 years of marriage, she'd never gone completely dark like this. Even during her most demanding projects, she'd send a quick text, a heart emoji, a running late, something to let me know she was okay. I moved to the living room window, pulling back the curtain to stare at the empty driveway. The streetlight cast long shadows across the pavement, and every pair of headlights that appeared at the end of our street made my heart leap, only to sink again as they passed by. Midnight came and went. I called her office. No answer. Of course there wouldn't be. The building would be locked up tight by now, security making their rounds through empty corridors. I called her best friend, Sarah, waking her up with apologies tumbling from my mouth. She left the office around 8:30, Sarah said, her voice thick with sleep and growing concern. We were on a video call until then. She seemed tired, said she was heading straight home. Have you tried? Everything, I interrupted. I've tried everything. Maybe her phone died? You know how she forgets to charge it sometimes. But that didn't explain why she wasn't home. It was a 40-minute drive from her office, an hour at most with traffic. Even with a dead phone, she should have been walking through the door hours ago. At 1:30 a.m., I called the hospitals. My hands shook as I dialed each number, my voice barely above a whisper as I described her. Brown hair that fell just past her shoulders, hazel eyes, a small scar on her left eyebrow from a childhood accident. No one matching her description had been admitted. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or more terrified. By 2 a.m., I was pacing the kitchen, phone clutched in my hand like a lifeline. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? My wife is 3 hours late? They'd tell me to wait, that adults have the right to come and go as they please, that 24 hours needed to pass before filing a missing person report. 24 hours. The thought made my stomach turn. I replayed our last conversation in my mind, searching for clues I might have missed. She'd called me during her lunch break, her voice strained with exhaustion. Just one more proposal to finish, she'd said. Then maybe things will slow down. There had been something else in her tone, something I couldn't quite identify at the time. Resignation, maybe? Or was it something deeper? The house creaked around me, every sound amplified in the stillness. The refrigerator hummed. The heating system clicked on. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. Normal sounds, domestic sounds, but tonight they felt alien, as if I were experiencing them for the first time. I sat on the couch, watching the front door, willing it to open. My mind spiraled through increasingly dark scenarios. Car accidents, abductions, heart attacks. She'd been so stressed lately, working 12-hour days, skipping meals, her shoulders permanently tensed like drawn bowstrings. When had I last really looked at her? Not just a passing glance across the dinner table or a quick kiss goodbye in the morning, but really looked. When had I last asked her how she was feeling, not about work or schedules or grocery lists, but about her hopes, her fears, the weight she was carrying? The guilt settled over me like a shroud as the night dragged on and the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky. My phone buzzed at 6:23 a.m., jarring me from a half-sleep I'd fallen into on the couch. I lunged for it, nearly dropping it in my desperation to unlock the screen. A message. From her. My relief was so intense I felt lightheaded, but as I started reading, a different kind of anxiety crept in. This wasn't a simple sorry, phone died text. The message was long, very long, and as my eyes scanned the first few lines, I realized this was something else entirely.
I'm okay.
I need you to know that first. I'm safe. I'm so sorry for not being able to reach you. My phone died around 9 p.m., and I've been trying to find a way to contact you ever since. I'm at a place called Riverside Inn, about 70 miles west of the city. Let me explain what happened, because there's a lot I need to tell you, and not just about last night. I sank back into the couch, my hands steadying as I continued reading. I left the office at 8:45, later than I told Sarah because I needed some time alone. I've been needing a lot of time alone lately, and I don't think you've noticed. Or maybe you have and we're both just pretending everything is fine. I drove on Highway 47 instead of taking the interstate. I know it's longer, but I couldn't face the traffic, the lights, the noise. I needed quiet, or at least a different kind of noise than what's been filling my head for months now. About 30 miles out, the car started making this terrible grinding sound. Then smoke started coming from the hood. I pulled over on this dark stretch of road with nothing but fields on either side and those tall pine trees that look like shadows in the dark. That's when my phone died. Of course it did, because that's how these things work in movies, right? Except this wasn't a movie, and I was genuinely scared. I could picture her there, alone on that dark road, and my chest tightened with retroactive fear. Why hadn't she taken the interstate? And what did she mean about needing time alone? I waited for maybe 20 minutes before I saw headlights. A patrol car, thank God. The officer, an older man with kind eyes, told me the nearest tow truck wouldn't come out until morning, and that the inn was about 2 miles up the road. He drove me there himself, waited while I checked in, even gave the innkeeper his card in case there were any problems. The room is small and smells like lavender and old wood. There's a rotary phone, can you believe it? But when I tried to call you, I realized I don't have your number memorized anymore. Isn't that terrible? 12 years of marriage and I can't remember the 10 digits that connect me to you. I don't know anyone's number anymore. They're all just names in my phone, and without my phone, I might as well be stranded on a desert island. So I sat here all night, alone with my thoughts, and that's when everything started to crack open. I paused reading, my heart pounding. There was a shift in the message here, a transition from explaining the facts of her situation to something more vulnerable, more raw. I need to tell you about what's been happening at work. Not just the long hours, you know about those, but what those hours have been doing to me. 3 months ago, my manager called me into his office and told me there was going to be a reorganization. My entire team, the people I've worked with for 5 years, were being let go. But not me. I was being promoted, given their responsibilities along with my own, because I was the most capable. Those were his exact words. I should have felt honored. Instead, I felt sick. These were my friends, my colleagues. I'd been to their kids' birthday parties. I knew their dreams, their struggles. And I was expected to just step over them, absorb their work, and be grateful for the opportunity. I said yes. Of course I said yes. Because that's what you do, right? You take the promotion, the raise, the title. You don't think about the cost until you're 3 months in and you realize you haven't had dinner with your husband before 9 p.m. in weeks. You don't think about it until you're crying in your car in the parking garage because you ran into Sarah, the only one they kept besides me, and you can't look her in the eye because you both know you benefited from other people's pain. I had to stop reading for a moment. She'd never told me any of this. The promotion 3 months ago, we'd celebrated with champagne. She'd smiled, said she was excited about the new challenges. When had she stopped telling me the truth? Or when had I stopped asking the right questions? Every day, I sit at my desk handling the work of 4 people, and I do it well because I'm good at what I do. But I'm also dying inside, a little more each day. I've thought about quitting maybe 100 times. I've drafted resignation letters in my head during meetings. Imagine the relief of walking out those doors and never coming back. I had to stand up, pace while I continued reading. The morning light was streaming through the windows now, but I barely noticed. All my attention was focused on these words, this confession that was pouring out of my wife like water from a broken dam. But I never told you any of this because I didn't know how. We've become so good at the surface conversations, haven't we? We talk about what's for dinner, whose turn it is to take out the trash, whether we need to replace the furnace filter. Safe topics. manageable topics. But underneath all of that, I've been drowning, and I think you've been swimming just far enough away that you don't have to acknowledge it. Last night, sitting in this strange room with its floral wallpaper and creaky bed, I had to confront something I've been avoiding. I'm not happy. I haven't been happy for a long time. And it's not just work. Work is the symptom, not the disease. Do you remember when we first got married? We used to stay up until 2 a.m. talking about everything and nothing. You'd tell me about the book you were reading, and I'd tell you about some ridiculous thing that happened at work, and we'd laugh until our stomachs hurt. We'd make plans, big, impossible plans, about traveling to Iceland, learning to sail, starting our own business. We were going to live deliberately, remember? We said we'd never become those people who just go through the motions. But that's exactly what we've become. I don't know when it happened. Maybe it was gradual, so slow that neither of us noticed until we'd drifted miles apart. Or maybe it was sudden, one of those moments where you blink and everything is different, but we were both too busy to stop and acknowledge it. I've been angry at you, if I'm being honest. Angry that you didn't notice how much I was struggling. Angry that you seemed content with our surface-level existence while I was suffocating underneath it. But sitting here alone all night, I realized that's not fair. Because I didn't tell you. I kept it all inside, put on my brave face, and then resented you for not seeing through it. I've also been angry at myself. For taking that promotion. For not standing up for my team. For working 70-hour weeks and convincing myself it was temporary, that things would slow down, that I just needed to push through this rough patch. For forgetting that life isn't something that happens later, it's happening right now, and I've been missing it. I felt tears on my cheeks and wiped them away impatiently. How had I not seen this? There had been signs, surely. The way she'd started spending more time in her home office with the door closed. The exhaustion in her eyes that went deeper than physical tiredness. The conversations that had become shorter, more transactional. But I'd told myself she was just busy, that it was a demanding season at work. I'd offered to handle more around the house, thinking that was what she needed. I'd never asked the harder questions. Are you okay? What do you need? How can I really help you? There's something else I need to tell you, something that made last night even more surreal. Around 3 a.m., I couldn't sleep, so I went down to the inn's common room. There was an old woman there, the innkeeper's mother I think, sitting in a rocking chair and knitting by lamplight. She looked like something out of a storybook, silver hair in a bun, wire-rimmed glasses, fingers that moved with practiced ease. She asked if I wanted tea, and before I knew it, we were talking. I told her about the car, about being stranded. And then, somehow, I found myself telling her everything else. About work, about the promotion, about feeling lost in my own life. She just listened, her needles clicking rhythmically, occasionally nodding. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something I can't stop thinking about. Sometimes we need to break down to remember we have the power to start over. Your car broke down tonight, but maybe something in you needed to break too, so you could finally see what needs fixing. I cried then. I sat in that strange common room with its mismatched furniture and mysterious water stains on the ceiling, and I cried in front of this woman I'd just met. She didn't try to fix it or tell me everything would be okay. She just handed me tissues and kept knitting, giving me space to feel what I needed to feel. And I realized something. I've been so afraid of breaking down in front of you. So afraid that if I showed you how much I was struggling, you'd see me as weak or incapable. So afraid that you'd be disappointed in me for not having it all together. But carrying that fear, hiding behind that facade, it's been crushing me more surely than any amount of work ever could. I had to sit down again. My legs felt unsteady, my whole world tilting on its axis. She thought I'd be disappointed in her. She thought she had to be strong all the time, had to hide her struggles. How had we gotten here? I continued reading, my coffee growing cold on the table beside me, forgotten. I keep thinking about the person I was when we met. Do you remember? I was so sure of myself, so confident about what I wanted. I was going to change the world, or at least my small corner of it. I had opinions about everything, and I wasn't afraid to voice them. I laughed loudly and didn't apologize for taking up space. Somewhere along the way, I learned to make myself smaller. Not because you asked me to, you never did. But because that's what seemed expected. At work, I learned to soften my language, to smile when I was angry, to say sorry before every request. At home, I learned to say I was fine when I wasn't, to handle my stress privately so it wouldn't burden you. The promotion was the culmination of all that learned behavior. They promoted me because I'd become excellent at absorbing stress, at taking on more without complaint, at sacrificing pieces of myself for the good of the company. And I took it because turning it down would have meant standing up for myself, saying no, this isn't what I want, and I'd forgotten how to do that. Last night, stuck here in this nowhere place, I remembered. The old woman, her name is Dorothy, I learned, told me about her daughter who works in the city now, some big corporate job. She said her daughter calls every Sunday and sounds like she's reading from a script. She said people forget that they're allowed to change their minds, to walk away from things that are killing them, even if those things look like success from the outside. What's the point of reaching the top, Dorothy asked, if you die before you get there? It sounds dramatic, I know. But sitting there at 3 a.m. in a stranger's common room, it hit me with the force of a revelation. I am dying. Not physically, but in every way that matters. The parts of me that make me who I am, my curiosity, my joy, my sense of humor, they've been getting smaller and smaller, starved of attention while I feed the machine of productivity and professional achievement. And the worst part? I've been letting it happen. I've been choosing it, day after day, telling myself it was necessary, that it was temporary, that this was what being an adult meant. My throat was tight, making it hard to swallow. I thought about my own compromises, the dreams I'd set aside as impractical. We'd been doing this together, both of us slowly shrinking into smaller, safer versions of ourselves, but separately, in silence, without acknowledging what we were losing. I need to tell you something I'm afraid to say. I'm thinking about quitting my job. Not just thinking about it, I'm going to do it. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. I can't keep doing this, not even for the salary, not even for the security. The cost is too high. I know this will change things. I know we'll have to adjust our budget, maybe make some sacrifices. I know it might seem irresponsible or impulsive, but staying is slowly killing me, and I need you to understand that. I need you to see me, really see me, and not just the functioning version of me that goes to work and pays the bills and remembers to buy milk. I'm scared to send this message. I've rewritten it a dozen times in my head, trying to make it softer, less raw. But Dorothy told me something else before I came back upstairs. The truth might hurt, but lies always hurt more. They just hurt slower, so you don't notice until the damage is done. So here's the truth, the whole truth, laid out in this message that's probably way too long and way too heavy for 6 a.m. on a Wednesday. I'm not happy with who I've become. I'm tired of pretending everything is okay when it's not. I'm exhausted from carrying all of this alone. I miss you, not the you who lives in the same house as me, but the you I used to stay up all night talking to. I miss us, the us we used to be before we got so caught up in surviving that we forgot to actually live. I don't know if we can find our way back to that. Maybe too much time has passed, too much distance has grown between us. Maybe we've changed too much. But I want to try. I need to try. Because this half-life we've been living, it's not enough anymore. It's not enough for me, and I don't think it's enough for you either, even if you haven't let yourself acknowledge it yet. I had to stop reading to wipe my eyes again. She was right. About all of it. I'd been coasting too, going through the motions, telling myself that this was just what life looked like after the honeymoon phase ended. We'd become roommates who occasionally had dinner together, 2 people managing a household instead of 2 people building a life. When had I last really talked to her? When had I last asked her what she was dreaming about? The message continued, and I could feel it building toward something, toward whatever came next for us. The tow truck will be here around 8 a.m. They'll take the car to a garage in town, and the innkeeper said there's a bus that runs to the city around noon. I should be home by early afternoon. Part of me wanted to wait to have this conversation face to face, but another part of me knew that if I didn't write it all down now, while I'm still here in this strange in-between place, I might lose my courage. Because that's what last night gave me, courage. Or maybe just clarity. When everything familiar is stripped away, your phone, your car, your normal routine, you're left with just yourself and your thoughts. And my thoughts were loud last night, louder than they've been in years. They told me I've been living a life I don't recognize. They told me I've been saying yes to things I should have said no to and staying silent about things I should have spoken up about. They told me I've been putting everyone else's needs and expectations ahead of my own for so long that I've forgotten what my own needs even are. But they also told me something else. It's not too late. It's never too late to change course, to reclaim the parts of yourself you've let slip away, to start over if that's what's needed. So here's what I want, what I really want, what I've been too afraid to voice. I want to quit my job and take some time to figure out what I actually want to do with my life. Not what looks good on paper or what pays well or what my parents would be proud of. What I want. Maybe that's starting my own consulting business. Maybe it's going back to school. Maybe it's something I haven't even thought of yet because I haven't given myself permission to dream. I want us to go to couples counseling. Not because we're broken beyond repair, but because we've lost our way and I think we need help finding it again. I want to learn how to talk to you again, really talk, not just exchange information about schedules and responsibilities. I want to travel. Remember Iceland? Let's go. Let's blow some of our savings and spend 2 weeks hiking and seeing the northern lights and remembering what it feels like to be adventurous together. I want lazy Sunday mornings where we stay in bed reading and talking and not checking our phones. I want to cook elaborate meals together like we used to, even if they turn out terribly. I want to laugh with you, the kind of deep, genuine laughter that makes your stomach hurt. I want to be seen by you, and I want to see you too. The real you, not the tired, stressed version who's also been going through the motions. I want to know what you're afraid of, what you're hoping for, what keeps you up at night. I want to tell you these things about myself too, without fear of judgment or disappointment. Most of all, I want us to remember that we get to choose. We get to choose how we live, what we prioritize, what we're willing to sacrifice and what we're not. We've been letting life happen to us, but we can take the wheel back. It won't be easy, and it won't be perfect, but it will be ours, deliberately, consciously ours. I don't expect you to have all the answers when I get home. I don't even expect you to agree with everything I've said. But I need you to hear me, really hear me, and to be willing to have the hard conversations we've been avoiding. If you can do that, if you can meet me in this vulnerable, uncertain place, then I think we have a chance. A real chance at building something better than what we had before, something more authentic and alive. If you can't, or if this is all too much, then we need to be honest about that too. Because I can't go back to the way things were. I won't. I'd rather face the uncertainty of change, even if it's painful, than continue sleepwalking through a life that looks fine from the outside but feels hollow on the inside. I'm sorry this happened the way it did. I'm sorry you were worried all night. I'm sorry I let things get this bad before saying something. But I'm also strangely grateful. Because sometimes you need to break down on a dark road in the middle of nowhere to realize you've been lost for a while. I love you. I want to keep loving you. But I need to love myself too, and I need us to build a relationship where that's possible, where we both get to be whole, complex, imperfect people who are honest about their struggles and support each other through them. See you this afternoon. I'll be the one with the overnight bag and the determined look in her eyes. Your wife, who's still figuring out who that means, but is finally ready to find out. I sat there for a long moment after finishing, the phone still in my hands, tears streaming freely down my face now. The morning light had fully broken, filling the living room with a golden glow that felt almost too cheerful for the weight of what I'd just read. But underneath the sadness, underneath the guilt and regret for all the ways I'd failed to see her struggling, there was something else, hope. She was right about everything. We had been sleepwalking. We had lost ourselves somewhere along the way, individually and as a couple. But she was also right that it wasn't too late. I picked up my phone and started typing a response, then stopped. This deserved more than a text. This deserved me showing up, being present, meeting her vulnerability with my own. I spent the morning cleaning the house, not because it needed to be perfect, but because I needed to do something with the nervous energy coursing through me. I made her favorite soup, the one her grandmother used to make. I pulled out the photo albums we hadn't looked at in years and spread them across the coffee table, reminders of who we'd been, breadcrumbs back to ourselves. When I heard the key in the lock around 2 p.m., my heart was pounding. She walked through the door looking exhausted, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, yesterday's clothes rumpled. But her eyes were different. Clearer somehow, more present. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, really looking, maybe for the first time in months. "I read your message," I said finally. "All of it. Multiple times." She nodded, setting down her bag, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm so sorry," I continued, my voice breaking. "I'm sorry I didn't see. I'm sorry I let us get so lost. I'm sorry I've been coasting too, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," she said softly. I crossed the room and pulled her into my arms, and she collapsed against me, both of us crying now, months of unexpressed emotion finally finding release. "Iceland," I whispered into her hair. "Let's go to Iceland. Let's quit jobs and go to counseling and have lazy Sunday mornings. Let's figure out who we are now and who we want to be. Together. Honestly." She pulled back to look at me, a small smile breaking through the tears. "Really? Really? I'm scared, and I don't have all the answers either. But you're right, this half-life isn't enough. Not for you, not for me, not for us. So let's build something better. Let's build something real." We spent the rest of the afternoon on the couch, talking like we hadn't talked in years. I told her about my own fears, my own sense of having lost my way. She told me more about work, about the colleague she'd lost, about the daily betrayal of her own values. We cried and laughed and held each other, the photo albums forgotten on the table, because we were too busy creating new memories, starting right now. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. She would quit her job, and we'd have to adjust. We'd start counseling and discover painful truths about ourselves and each other. We'd have arguments and setbacks and moments of doubt. But we'd also have mornings where we stayed in bed talking until noon. We'd have inside jokes and adventures and the slow, deliberate work of building a life that felt true. We'd remember that breakdown, whether of a car or a life, wasn't the end. Sometimes it was just the beginning, the moment when you finally stop pretending and start living. As the afternoon sun slanted through the windows, turning everything golden, I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and saw not just who she'd been or who she was trying to be, but who she was right now, in this moment, brave, honest, imperfect, and choosing to try. And I chose it too. Not the easy path, but the real one. Not the life that looked good from the outside, but the one that felt true on the inside. We didn't have all the answers. But for the first time in a long time, we were asking the right questions. And we were asking them together. That, I realized, was everything.